All right, we are on air. Happy January 28th, everybody. We are coming to the end of the first month in which Backdraft 1.3 was out. Makes it sound exciting, right?
Woo! Yeah. Woo!
um, quick announcements, general announcements. We have Dragon t-shirts and hoodies if you would like to make a contribution to your favorite Dragon-friendly open source project. You can go to backdropcms.org/contribute, and we send out t-shirts as a thank you gift for a $25 donation and hoodies as a thank you gift for a $50 donation. But if you are already a Backdrop CMS contributor, and we take that lightly, you're welcome to a t-shirt. So just send an email to info@backdropcms.org and we'll mail one out to you. So if you've contributed in an issue queue, a conversation, provided designs, given us guidance on a project management committee or anything at all that's been helpful, we will send you a t-shirt as a thank you gift. So feel free to take advantage of that offer. We also have free PHP Storm licenses for anyone who's a Backdrop Contrib developer, and the rules around that mean you have to be in the Backdrop Contrib group. That's just how they check to make sure that we're not giving these out higgledy-piggledy. But if you would like to be a Backdrop Contrib developer, we can also help you through that process. In general, those are people who are providing modules, themes, or layouts to the larger Backdrop community. But we are also looking for co-maintainers on a lot of the projects that are there now, just to make sure that we have a little resiliency in our community. So if there's a module or a theme or a layout that you find yourself using all the time or updating occasionally and you want a little bit more responsibility and ownership of said project, reach out to the current maintainer, because a lot of our maintainers are currently maintaining a lot of projects, and I'm sure they would be very interested in getting some help and support. And if you guys chat it out and decide that you want to work together, we can get you added to the Contrib group there as well and distribute a PHP Storm license if you want one. So send an email to info.backdropcms.org if any of that sounds interesting to you, and we can help you sort out the details. There aren't any updates from the PMC this week, so I want to turn the meeting over to Nate to talk a little bit about our community growth.
Thanks, Jen. Pretty kind of slow-moving week since the last meeting. I think a lot of Backdrop devs are a little bit a little bit worn out after the rush up until the January 15th release, but we are seeing some modest growth. We've had one new project published to the Contrib group, bringing our total to 196. We have 119 total projects that have official releases. One new one has been published on backdropcms.org since last week. One new release on backdropcms.org, bringing our total to 161. And 45 total Backdrop Contrib authors, but one is pending an invitation. So we have one new Contrib author as well. So kind of just one new item across the board there. Let's see, we also have 4 users created new user accounts on backdropcms.org, bringing our total to 84. We just opened user account registration not too long ago on backdropcms.org. So anybody that's out there that's listening, or actually the people in this meeting, if you haven't made an account on backdropcms.org, it's a great time to do so to get your low user ID numbers. Although hopefully that'll be a less important matter in Backdrop land, since we have path the auto on those URLs by default anyway. It won't be like shouting it and shoving it in your face like it had been for so long in Drupal.org. Let's see, infrastructure. Infrastructure are things around Backdrop CMS that aren't the software itself, mostly hosting and backdropcms.org. Let's see, the one item we've got on here we're getting really close to finally wrapping up is analytics of what sites are running what projects, basically keeping track of usage statistics for individual projects. We have the data, the number crunching script fixed up so that it can actually calculate and crunch numbers correctly. We haven't merged that in, and it hasn't been deployed yet, but it's there and it's ready to go. The holdup has been this issue that Jen worked on this past week, which is Travis CI currently. Every time we run a test, it reports itself as another installation of Backdrop, actually several installations of Backdrop. And we have a pull request over in the Backdrop issue queue at 1566. Actually, that's the issue 1566, to keep Travis and other simple tests from reporting themselves as new installations of Backdrop when you run the testing suite. So once that's in place, we should get more accurate numbers, and we'll need to do a little bit of retroactive cleanup on the raw numbers that we've collected so far to filter out all the Travis IP addresses so that we don't have their artificial reports in there. Because right now, every time we have a lot of testing happening, the number of usages go up, and then when testing goes back down because we're not doing as much development, then the usage goes down. And so we're going to go through and retroactively kind of clean up that data to make it so that we don't get these swings when testing is running frequently. After we get that all in place, we have some wish list items on project usage statistics that we would like to expand it to make it so that when we did update checking, we would also be reporting usage information about features that are on particular Backdrop websites, like how many websites they're using, what themes they're using, whether or not they're using color module, clean URLs, those sorts of things. And so then we can get kind of collections of information, maybe even like per project, like information that you could collect if you were a contrib developer, like say I want to collect this information about my project to get usage information on that, which would be really awesome. We have an issue for that. It's over in the backdropcms.org issue queue, which is github.com/backdrop-ops, backdropcms.org, and that's issue 99 for that issue if you're kind of interested in trying to make something like that happen for Backdrop. Drush for Backdrop. This past week, we finally moved Drush into the Backdrop contrib group. Yay! It's great. We've kind of been holding off on that for a little while. I would still rate it as proof of concept, though. It's not super stable, and as we ran into this past week, Jeff pointed out that if you have the Drush extension in your .drush directory, there's a Backdrop extension for Drush. You drop it into your .drush directory, and then it makes it so that Drush can work with a limited number of commands in a Backdrop installation. But we found out recently that if you have to use Drush 8 with it, first of all, and if you throw the extension into your Backdrop website or into your Drush directory, for some reason, Drush stops recognizing Drupal 7 sites. It's not a good situation. I think you can still put the Drush extension inside of your site directory, though, I think, and that'll make it so that it will only be there inside of your site and not inside of other sites. But it's less than ideal. So we're working on figuring that out in the Drush issue queue for Backdrop. It's in Backdrop contrib/drush/issue/9. And we're trying to figure out what's going on there because we'd obviously like to make it so that Drush would work seamlessly with at least Drupal 7, Drupal 8, and Backdrop. But we might be experiencing a bug in Drush itself that it shouldn't be conflicting the way it is right now if the Backdrop boot class is present. So we're trying to figure that one out. Once we get that figured out, though, we do have a plan for publishing Drush on backdropcms.org as well. We'll make a manual release of Drush or a manual project node on backdropcms.org just to get a little bit more visibility once that's ready. Okay, let's see. GitHub Automation. We have a segment in here for some items that we would like to get automated. We don't have a timeline for these things because they're lower priority, but they would be really useful for us as a project. We'd like to make it so that GitHub we could integrate it with our contrib applications to make it so that when a user posted a contrib application to backdrop CMS or to the backdrop ops group, that it would do some kind of automated like code review, like checking to make sure that the history is maintained from Drupal 7, that it includes a README and a license.txt file, and that would make our review process a little bit more streamlined, getting through new applicants into the contrib group. We also want to make it so that we can sync tags. We currently have 2 repositories, one for issues and one for the code, due to GitHub's limited permissioning system. And we'd like to get tags synchronized between the pull requests and the issue, so that when you mark an issue PR needs review, it adds the needs review tag to the pull request. Because right now, everybody that works in Backdrop in the core issue queue gets added to a group that lets it so that they can tag issues in the Backdrop issue queue, but they still don't have access to tag stuff in the pull request queue because that requires commit access because of silly GitHubness. So we'd like to make it so that there's some automation in between our issue queue repository and the pull request list. And we can do that all with GitHub webhooks, but it obviously just takes a little bit of effort to get that set up. We have a number of other items that we would like to implement. There's a tag in the backdropcms.org issue queue for GitHub Automation for a number of items that we would like to include to make it so that kind of our project management is a little bit more streamlined for all of our uses in GitHub and in backdropcms.org. Let's see. Jen, do you want to take on the primary website, backdropcms.org, talk about it a bit?
So there hasn't been a lot of stuff going on the primary website recently. We turned on user profiles around January 1st, and then we put up some blog posts, which is kind of the big news lately. We've got a bunch of follow-up issues around both of those things, but Backdrop itself has been getting our attention recently. On our plate for the near future, first of all, we want to be able to set up some sort of single sign-on with GitHub, so anybody who already has a GitHub account doesn't also need to manually create an account on Backdrop. If we give them a button to push that would create an account for them with the same username, that would be fantastic, and then we could link their activity on GitHub with their activity on Backdrop really easily. We're also going to make sure that that process will work for people who are creating accounts now, so that you can just join it to your GitHub account, and then you'll be able to sign in to both. Which will be great. And then we also want to allow people who have accounts on backdropcms.org to be able to do something useful with them. Right now, you probably noticed all you can do is set up a profile page, which I think is good. It lets us, lets our community kind of start to show their personalities a little bit and what it is they're doing with Backdrop. But we also want to be able to let people do things like list themselves as service providers or post examples of websites that they've built with little case studies around, what was significant about that website, or a screenshot of it if it's beautiful, and just give people a tool to help you sell Backdrop in the future, where people go, oh, what sites are on it? And you're like, well, I have a couple, and my friend has a couple, and that's not a super good sales pitch. But if you can say, here's a showcase, here's all these websites that are using it, and how, problems they've solved using Backdrop, it'll be a big help to everyone. So we're hoping to set that up next. Then we also have a couple of other longer-term plans, like we'd like to move our event calendar off of Google Calendar and onto a place where anyone can list their Backdrop event. So if you have a Drupal camp or a conference, or a nonprofit camp or conference, or just a tech summit where people are going to be talking about Backdrop, anyone can post those events there. Eventually, we might also end up having meetups and Backdrop's own camps and conferences that appear on that calendar as well. But for now, it's just a place where people can go to talk to other people about Backdrop. Then something that's been super successful in the Drupal world is a job board. So companies that are trying to hire developers, or developers who are looking for jobs, can meet each other. I think that is something Backdrop should look into as well, looking into things that worked really well for Drupal and mimicking them. And then if we find other things that we think are super useful, something that came up today that maybe I'll put on our long-term plan is that Andy built this website on Pantheon that lets you preview all of the existing backdrop themes. And I took one look at that and went, we need this. We need this as part of the decision-making process about which theme you're going to put on your own site. This is something I've seen. If you go to websites like ThemeForest that sell themes, they give you a live preview of what that site actually looks like. If we could come up with some way to make that part of the theme selection process on backdropcms.org, I think that would be fantastic. So there are some concerns about like whether we need to run 500,000 websites with different versions of the themes or not. If we could take like static HTML screenshots of a couple websites, I don't know how we're going to figure out how to make that scale. But it's definitely a feature I think we should think about including, so I think it'll be a big a boom to actually let people see and test drive those themes. So thanks for solving that problem, Andy, and thanks for posting that link. That's going to be super useful for people. So food for thought, theme showcase, theme examples. I don't know what we're going to call it, but we'll figure it out. And then, of course, we've got ongoing improvements to the existing site. Our Find Modules, Themes, and Layouts pages need a little development to get more information exposed to people. Now that we have a bunch of modules for people to choose from, we need to help them make those decisions, doing things like showing the number of downloads, the number of active installations, I don't know, links to the GitHub issue queue, stuff like that I think would be useful to have on the site. They're in our designs. We just don't have the content there to throw into views. So we need to set that up. And then also our blog news announcements section, we did kind of a minimum viable get the data up sort of page, and that's out for design review, which we hope to have done maybe by the end of February. So we'll get a little cleanup going on that going forward as we're adding new stuff to the site. For other news, we have the next blog post is currently scheduled for February 5th, and Nate's going to be writing up a little post on PHP 7 support. This is something that will start to differentiate Backdrop from Drupal 7, where people are like, I don't know, everything I need already exists for Drupal 7. I don't know, why should I choose Backdrop? And we're like, well, here's some metrics. Nate's going to do some benchmarking and see if he can get some performance differences on PHP versions with Backdrop, maybe some comparisons to Drupal 7, and we'll start to get a little bit more of a sales point around that, not just your version of jQuery is newer, which is kind of what we have now. So anyone else who wants to write a blog post, and Doug, I'm not sure if you've heard about this yet or not, but we are opening the blog post section up to the general public, so anyone who's a member of the Backdrop community and has something to share, we'll put a post up on backdropcms.org. Our official schedule goes every 2 weeks, so that'll give us time to slip in other posts kind of in the middle. Mike has offered to write one up on CMI and how to manage config if you're on an environment like Pantheon where you don't actually get SSH to the server and you can't commit from your production config directory, so he's got a workaround for that. I know Doc Wilmot is working on a post on how to do theming for Backdrop, which I think will be super interesting. And I think Studibun is writing a sort of a, I think it's a 2015 retrospective post with a lot of opinions from various different members of the community, which I think will be super interesting too. So anyone who has anything that's good, valuable content and you want it up on our blog, we can just put you in the schedule whenever that post is ready. We'll do a little review of it just to make sure that, you know, everything's in line, but in general, we trust our people to say the right things. So say what you think, and we'll get you on schedule, which is good. There is an issue for that. It's issue 158 in the backdropcms.org queue. So anyone who has an idea about a blog they want to write, add a comment to that issue, and we'll get that put in the schedule. Webinars, we're going to do a webinar. We're going to do one on February 24th, which will be a Backdrop CMS overview, followed by a deep dive into layouts, which is our current differentiator between Backdrop and Drupal. So Nate's going to be doing that one, which will be fun. And then we're going to try and do another webinar after the release of Backdrop 1.4. And we'll see what we're most excited about by 1.4 to see what that one will be on. We have recently done 2 podcasts this past week celebrating the release of Backdrop 1.3. The Lullabot podcast is out now. There's a link to it in our agenda for today's meeting, but you can also find it on lullabot.com under podcasts. It's called 1 Year of Backdrop, and it's a pretty casual, just kind of conversation about what it's been like in the backdrop world for the last year. We have another podcast coming out any day on Drupal Easy, which I think is a little more intensive, hard questions about how do things compare to Drupal, which should also be a good listen. They're fairly different in terms of content, I think, so keep your eyes open for that. And anyone who's particularly interested in helping us out with marketing should know that we've created a new tag in the backdropcms.org queue for issues around how to properly market Backdrop. It includes things like getting our Google Analytics working and starting to tweet and write blog posts and just try and make a little bit more noise about what's going on with Backdrop so that the world knows we're here, we're out, we've got releases coming out on schedule, we've got cool new features going in, it's ready for prime time. So just trying to spread the word a little bit. I think that's it for marketing. So maybe we should move on to Backdrop itself. We released 1.3.0, and then we did a couple of quick follow-up releases. As you would expect with any major release, there's a lot of little bugs. We got most of the ones we found about right away fixed and issued another follow-up release that is available now. If you can download it from the backdropcms.org homepage, you can get it from GitHub, you can get it on Pantheon. Latest version is available. 1.3.3 is our next release. We don't have anything urgent that needs to go into that release, but if we do, we'll get that scheduled and send it out. Security releases or bugs that we think are serious enough that we need to push them out right away will cause 1.3.3 to get cut. 1.4.0, which is the most exciting thing on our schedule here, is coming out May 15th. We're hoping that will include a version of references module that will work more like entity reference. You know, we've had a couple people, Mike, I know you've been working on that. We've got a couple people thinking about how that'll go. I've got a bunch of sites that are using references module, so I'd be happy to do a little extensive testing of whatever upgrade path we need. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, I've started working on it. I kind of have to post like sort of one big question about would it be good or not? Like right now, we're essentially, should a reference field be able to should it be able to target multiple different types of entities? Or
the field?
Yeah, like so if you have a field that's like, you know, related things, could you have it reference not only posts but also images or like, you know, job postings and stuff like that? And well, I guess those are both nodes, but yeah, so I don't know, I'm looking at how hard that would be to implement, because just doing the views on stuff like that would be hard, because it would be essentially combining multiple base tables to sort of each. So I think for the first initial version I'm going to try is maybe just select one entity type, and then you can select any number of bundles within that, and that seems like a good start.
Yeah, so that's what entity reference does, and I think it's worked pretty well. I mean, I'm for sure there are probably use cases where you'd want to reference everything, but I think that it's not necessary. So if it's hard, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way: it's not that hard to implement, I guess, but it's just like, yeah, it's you would need, yeah, it'd be more work. It'd be hard.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start without that.
Of it would be bad, you know. Yeah.
The what?
The repercussions, like implementing might be easy, like getting the data in the tables, you know, but then the repercussions of like, okay, now how do I list it? You're right, it would make it really messy.
Exactly, and it might be possible. Maybe we'll try to add that to it, but let's just start off with, I guess, single entity type, and then, you know, multiple bundles.
Yeah.
For each individual field.
I also think in general, as things move from contrib to core, I would prefer to see the set of features decrease, with saying anything that is hard or complicated we leave to contrib, and that's what the contrib version of entity reference would look like in the future, rather than saying, oh, well, you know, we have the opportunity to add more stuff. It's just go the other way. Let the you know, copy what we have now and reduce.
Yeah,
you know.
no, basically, I'm trying to make a implementation that takes sort of the best parts of all the different reference things
Yeah.
and tries to make the smallest, simplest thing, and it might not have all the individual features. Like I'm just imagining that it has some basic options on it when you set it up, like is it published or not, and maybe some other basic what are they called, like attributes that all entity types usually have. And then actually provide better interface to have views be used for things like the selecting in the field.
Yeah.
Like the data is not hard at all because it's just like entity type and like ID. It's just like letting the user find and select the appropriate entity in the admin interface, and then displaying it is where we need more complicated stuff. But
okay, and that's
anyway. Yep.
All right, another thing that has been on our list for a while now is getting a redirect solution in core. And we have a couple of different issues. There's one for moving redirect module into core, which includes the user interface that lets you choose which one's the canonical source for a page and then what all of the redirects are to it. But there's also a couple of simpler low-hanging fruit issues, like just setting up some sort of global redirect or path redirect solution where when your path alias changes, make sure that you redirect from the old one to the new one, rather than keeping all paths to any given page active. And I think that we can probably get those in separately rather than doing them all at once. But I would love to see the user interface that lets us set up redirects for each item as well. So that issue is number 905, and I think we can try and shoot to get that in by 1.4 as well. But bigger, crazier things are going on in 1.4, including adding a new front-end theme. And we tried to talk about this a little bit in our design meeting about an hour ago, and none of our normal design folks were available today, so we figured we'd table it and talk about it in this meeting instead. So I went through the issue that we created, which is 1361, about adding a new front-end theme to core. And I tried to pull out all of the bullet points that people had mentioned in the comments about what our requirements should be for a new front-end theme. And I think this will help us kind of choose an existing theme or whether we need to create something new for core. I'm not sure this is a complete set of requirements, but it's what people have talked about before. So I did want to take a minute to talk this over with everyone here and see if we can get some consensus on where we're going with this and see if that'll help us make a little progress. So a couple of things that people mentioned in the issue queue were that you wanted the front-end theme to be lightweight. I'm not entirely sure what lightweight means to everyone, if it's the same thing. But what I was thinking that meant is that we don't do too much overwriting of everything. There are a lot of themes in Contrib that try and rewrite all of the markup in core. And I think that if we get something as crazy as Zen or Bootstrap, there might be too much going on. And that would make it really confusing for people who are new and perhaps solving problems that don't exist for most users. So I was thinking like a minimal number of overwrites, like we'll see what we need to do, obviously, once we get in there and we have a design and we need to make it look correct. But not too much code, I think, was where I was going with lightweight. Also making sure it's performant in the front end. Maybe that goes along with lightweight too, just so that we're not adding a ton of JavaScript or external fonts or something that'll make the site slow because of the theme. Would also be good to consider. People want it to be attractive. That's a good idea, but it doesn't actually, like, if you go to a designer and say, make me something attractive, like, that's not super helpful. So a couple of suggestions that people said is, if we could look at what Squarespace, what it is that makes Squarespace attractive and try and figure out how to apply those same rules to Backdrop's theme, that would be great. WordPress also has a bunch of great fairly attractive themes that might be a good source. But if we could get something that is a little bit more actionable than the word attractive to describe what it is that we want, that might also be good. Everybody's mentioned that the new theme should be responsive. I think that should go without saying. If we want Backdrop to be responsive out of the box, then the theme has to be responsive too. But that might also come down not to the theme itself, but the layouts. The layouts are what should make the site responsive. The theme, it would be hard to know specifically what to adjust in the theme because we don't have any content to target. So we'll see, if we end up having to do special things in the theme or not. We'll see once we have one. Somebody else also mentioned that we have inherited Drupal 7's front-end architecture and mentioned that it should maybe be put to rest. I don't know what that means. I don't know, you know, how you properly architect a theme based on a core system that's significantly different. This is the land for front-end experts to come in and try and tell us what front-end architecture is and what is important to the world at large versus what is important to the experts. And we can try and find some happy medium. I think.
Hey, have you guys heard about that twig thing? We should totally do that.
I don't know. I think we should put in a headless system. Maybe.
We could be the first CMS to support headless twig.
Headless twig. We got it. Yeah, but I think, you know, in general, the idea of not changing too much would be great. Obviously, we want to make it look really different. I'm not sure this means we need to rewrite all of the code or re-architect all of the code just in our front-end theme. But it would be nice if our front-end theme made sense to people when they opened it up. So if we can figure out how to split difference there, that would be good. Mike mentioned that it would be great if it could support full-width image blocks. So this also ties into the idea of setting up some kind of default, perhaps homepage layout, perhaps a default image block or a default image rotator or slideshow of some kind, but something that lets some part of the page bleed to the full width, I think would be good. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to happen if we don't have an image block, so it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. I went and found the issue for providing a front-end layout and also tagged that with 1.4 so that hopefully we can try and get those done at the same time. If we have a layout that has said image block, we can work on making the front-end theme support full width.
This might be more of a layout thing just because, because it's sort of this weird thing where you want a site where like the background's on a block or something like that can go full width, but still have a container for the content inside. And I'm not sure where the best place to sort of do that is, and whether it's just having specific layouts that have that as part of their layouting, or whether it's because usually, like, I feel like you always have to do some sort of like hack around to like get rid of the container and then make it full width and then add containers elsewhere and stuff. So I don't know. That's kind of probably a whole nother problem.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think it'll probably also depend on the markup we end up with. Like if we end up having some kind of a slideshow thing that requires its own markup, that might maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, I think it'll be, if we can get both of those things done at the same time, we can get a front-end layout, and then we can try and discuss like how to target the areas to make them full width. But
or maybe if we can actually add like CSS customization of regions or something like that. So when you're editing a layout, you can actually add a CSS class to the region or something that makes it go full width, but have a container inside of it or something. So
yeah, that sounds good. Okay, other things. So this is also interesting too, is the division of what coders can control in the theme versus what a user interface should provide for the theme. One thing that Drupal core themes have always been required to support is color module. We inherited that. Bartik supports color module. Do we want our new theme to support color module? It sounds from the issue queue that everybody says yes, that it's really important that people who just want to throw up a site have the ability to change colors. What that means, what part of our theme is going to be colored and what you have control over changing will depend on the design. So I would just say we'll say it requires color module support, and we can debate what's colored and what colors change once we know what it's going to look like. But yeah, that's definitely something everyone wants. A couple of other things.
Well, it might be easier. We might want to just get rid of the color module and just have themes able to have configuration things like the color, and just have because just having the common module that's sort of always there is kind of weird.
Yeah, that is another thought too.
Maybe provide like a color field type that has like a nice widget for choosing the color, and then just have the theme be able to call that field type.
Yeah, or just have each theme ship with a bunch of different style sheets where it's like, here, choose red, green, blue, and just have a super simple toggle that'll like load the right one based on a setting or something. I mean, it doesn't, the way color module handles colors right now is crazy because it existed before we had other solutions. And it's, you look at it and you're like, wow, I can't believe it's, you know, doing a regex over the CSS file and replacing these, but it's just, it's weird. So there's definitely other ways we can solve that solution today, and maybe the way this new theme supports color changing is a great chance for us to evaluate how that happens. And if we want to get rid of color module,
we should probably create a ticket just to look at this issue.
Yeah, it's going to be a doozy for sure. And then another thing that someone said they thought we might want to support having user interface to change is the fonts, which makes me a little bit nervous because all of our styling to make that theme look good might get, it's a little risky to start letting people change fonts and expect it to still look good when they're done. But there could be something very similar to the way the color module looks, where we have like different style sheets for each color. You could also have different style sheets for each font. It just kind of adds another dimension of complexity where we would need to deal with that. I'm tempted to say pick a font that works with the theme and don't let anyone change it. And if you want to change a font, you can install a contrib project like font, what was it, Google Fonts or whatever, that lets you do that separately. Maybe that's not something we should have in core, but it was brought up, so I wanted to put it in the list here to see if we should consider that. Whatever that come up in various different places. And when we were trying to change, like to update the aesthetic of Bartik in 1.3, we're like, oh, well, we can't just make all these corners square because it'll change everyone's site, so we should add a setting that allows people to make corners square versus round. And then it got kind of complicated kind of quickly, and we're like, well, we'll just, you know, table that, and then we can talk about it for when we get to new front-end theme if we want to allow these kind of settings to exist. I think that if we design the theme well enough or choose a design that is good on its own, we don't need to worry about allowing people to change the tab styles. And if they really don't like tab styles, they'll choose a different theme. So I've kind of figured maybe we shouldn't worry about that, especially because we do have this legacy tab style setting in Bartik already. I feel like maybe continuing down that path is maybe not worth it. So what do you guys think about?
We might want to also maybe just consider doing like 2 core themes, one like super simple that can be used as a base or something like that, and then one with all the bells and whistles to show what it's possible to do when you're building a theme.
That's a good idea. Have an example of a base theme, sub-theme setup. It is more to support, but yeah, I'd totally be open to that. What do you guys think about fonts? Is that something that you've ever been like, oh, I love this theme, but I hate the font? Have you ever used that Google Fonts module that lets you drop in? So I've used a couple of, like, I've had a couple of clients that had design requirements around which font is used, and you have to like go buy their font, and you get this crazy like web license for whatever that's really expensive because it's per page view or something. And then you install the thing, and then it changes all the fonts, all your whole site, and then you've got to go and like target specific areas and like fix line heights and stuff, and it's really a pain in the butt. And I feel like I wouldn't want to put that in core just because of the amount of work that comes along with it, unless it was like, you know, we've chosen one font, but we know it also works with this other font, and we could just provide like 2 options, and maybe they're both open source fonts, and you can, you know, have 2 style sheets or something that target all of the line height issues in various different places. But even that seems like perhaps too much work. I'm tempted to say, let's not worry about fonts. Does anyone object to that?
I think that's the right way to go.
Okay. So then what we'll do is we'll say we'll support color changing, though not necessarily color module. We'll open an issue and evaluate how to actually do that. And then the other things we want are lightweight, attractive, responsive, well architected, whatever that means, and then figure out some way to do a full width image block that might be associated with the layout or not the theme. Is there anything else that we want on our list of requirements that we haven't talked about? Alrighty then. If anyone can think of anything that you think is really important.
Well, the other question I have is like, what is a theme like that would do nothing? Like, you know, we're sort of automatically in core. We have lots of template files already in core doing all the markup and things like that, and also providing some styles and things. So it's almost like, what's like a good starting theme where there actually is no theme, and we just sort of make the work on ensuring that the defaults set by the system are actually make kind of sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe we should look for examples of that, and see if there is, like, you know, what does WordPress do?
So, yeah, and what's the responsibilities of the theme layer in providing the default? Like, should you be able to create a new theme without anything in it and just like create one new template file or something like that to override how that works, or to create just the basic styles? And so, like, is there a way to have Backdrop provide, like, you know, good defaults out of the box without anything in the theme, and then the theme can just do the changing to make things as the person wants?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Drupal 8 ended up doing, right? Where they have this base theme that basically does nothing, that now is core. And then they have this theme called Classy, which adds all the classes, so that if you want to just write like style sheets, you can turn on Classy, and then you can target whatever you want. And then they have their actual themes that provide overrides and styles for all the stuff on top of that. So, yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to go as far as Drupal 8 in terms of having to rewrite all of the code in core to remove all of the existing classes. I know there are a lot of like HTML, CSS experts who hate all of the divs and classes and whatever that come out of core of Drupal and now Backdrop. But I would love to see like Backdrop 2 focus on cleaning up only what is unnecessary, rather than like throwing out everything and saying all of this markup is wrong. Minimal changes moving in the right direction, I think, would be better than a kind of a wholesale replacement. But I do like the idea of allowing people to just add a theme with a style sheet or a theme with one template. I'm trying to think of how often that's actually worked. I guess it depends on what your use case is, like your process for building a website. Like if your process is, I have a design and I need to make a theme, that's not realistic because you have to change it to make it look exactly like the design. But if your use case is, I just want a website and I want to change this color and make it blue, like you could definitely do that by adding a style sheet. I think I might have done that for my dad's website back when it was in Drupal. I think I took a contrib theme that was green and he demanded that it be blue, and then I made it blue. And it was all it took was like one style sheet and a new directory of images that were a different color that matched the new style. Because back then you used images for backgrounds. But, yeah, I mean, I think I would love to see us making a system of themes that made it easier for people to get to what they want without having to overwrite everything. But I don't know what people want anymore. I don't know what that use case is or what I think we should. I don't know. Does anyone else have any opinions on like what you guys are doing now for your? I know, Andy, you're an expert at theme stuff now. Are there a lot of sites that you've built that like just add a style sheet to change something one way or another, or minimal modification of an existing theme?
Well, it kind of depends on who the audience is. Like, if the audience is, you know, Backdrop is for web developers, and you know, we just want to make web developing for web developers easier. Then, you know, that's one path. But if the other, if another path or another market might be like, you know, you are gonna start your startup, or you are a psychologist and you just need a website or something, then that's kind of a different market. And then then you might think like, um, how, okay, so that's good. So then where does like the backdrop leadership maybe lie? And then in that case, you might be like, oh, then backdrop is sort of like a product as a service, like maybe like you might say like WordPress or Squarespace are not just um, charity organizations that are just for the goodness of humankind. They have a subscription service where they sort of host it, and you pay them for, these basic things. So then there's kind of like, where does the vision lie in that?
Yeah. I feel like we're definitely not, well, right now we're not providing Backdrop as a service, right? You can't just sign up for a Backdrop website and get one.
Well, you can on Pantheon.
But Pantheon is not targeted towards the end user, though. It is a developer platform. So I think like trying to get, it's one step above the average, oh, I need a website, I'm going to sign up on Squarespace and click one together. Like, we're definitely a slightly different audience than that. But I still think it would be great if we could provide, this core theme. The goal is to make it usable out of the box. And I know, Luke, you said you've never used Color Module. I've used it, I think, 3 times on like production sites where I've needed to, I bought a theme that was like red, green, or blue, and it was like, I want blue, and that was kind of it. I've never, I think I used it on still on my website. I'm using Garland with Color Module. I don't think that counts. I'm not a paying client. But I think, yeah, then there was one other case that I think some client side I inherited was using it. Yeah, it's kind of a very limited thing, usually because the colors you get aren't great, and then they're also very timed. Like, you can feel the age of the website, and you want to kind of move off of them pretty quickly. Like, oh yeah, my Garland website feels like it was built 10 years ago. It doesn't get a lot of attention. But anyway, there's definitely, I think if we can come up with something that's good enough that people can launch a very blank slate, whitewashed website quickly, that is probably good enough. And I think that we are in the audience where you maybe don't necessarily need a developer, but you need a site manager type. So if you can write some HTML and CSS, we should make it easy for them to add a style sheet and extend whatever. I don't necessarily think we should expect that we're going to have armies of developers in every project. Like the theme developer is different from the module developer kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not sure this is helping us get to any answers, but I think you're right. Like, thinking about who our target audience is going to be important. What do you think, Nate?
I think we need to move on.
All right, let's move on. Okay, so we have a summary for themes. We'll keep thinking about that and come back to it next issue for our new front-end theme. Another thing we need to think about for Backdrop 1.4 is putting new layouts in core. We have an issue for that as well. It's issue number 698. Right now the issue is titled Move Radix Layouts into Core. We need to kind of think about how that actually happens, like what is required in terms of moving a giant set of layouts like that in core, how they're going to interact with the existing layouts, how we should try and make classes consistent across everything or not, what framework we should use to handle our grid system, if any, And so there's a whole bunch of discussion that needs to go on about the right way to put more layouts in core, especially if we're going to end up having to support them, not only in core, but every contrib theme would in theory have to support every core layout. So trying to make sure our grid system handles all of the layout-y stuff so that themes don't have to worry about it would be important. There's also a milestone for 1.4.0 if you want to look at other issues that have been tagged for the 1.4 release. This includes some of the user experience stuff we didn't get done for 1.3, as well as some of the new features we'd like to include, like a new front page layout. All available on the GitHub issue queue as long as GitHub is up. If you want to look at a roadmap that's not on GitHub, you can also view backdropcms.org/roadmap, where we're putting the things we've decided to include in the next release up there. There's a bunch of stuff that we're always working on, including user experience improvements and developer experience improvements. There are two big projects that we want to get in, hopefully to the next release, that are on that list right now. Project Browser, which allows you to browse new modules and themes and layouts from your existing Backdrop site rather than needing to go to backdropcms.org. It was technically finished by 1.3, but we decided it needed a little cleanup before we could put it in core. We want to separate the actual Project Browser from Update module. We don't think you should be required to have your site ping backdropcms.org to check to see if it's up to date, just to get a list of modules to install. Those two functions seemed sort of different, so we wanted to separate them out. And then we also wanted to just kind of make that process of selecting a module more integrated with the existing interfaces. Right now it's just kind of on a separate page. We thought we should include it in the install a module page, for example, rather than having the Project Browser page be next to it. So we've just got a couple of little issues to clean that up and get it in. Field UI is also another one that's been a big pain point ever since Drupal 6, probably. We know it's not great. It got a little worse with Drupal 7. It's got a couple of low-hanging fruit issues that we can do to make it better, but we've also decided that maybe we should just throw it out and start over. So there is a major issue for redoing Field UI on number 779 in Backdrop CMS, or in the Backdrop queue. If anyone wants to help work on that, we've got some time now to see if we can get that done by 1.4. So I think that would be a big user experience improvement if we could get fields cleaned up. So we'll see. Let's see. Sprints. So every Thursday after this meeting, we usually hang out in the GitHub issue queue. We're also chatting on gitter.im. There's a Backdrop channel there, and we also hang out on IRC. If you are old school, you can find us in the pound Backdrop channel on freenode.net. We also have a Reddit where people are having some discussions, but I'm not sure how active that's been lately. So if you have questions and you're not into GitHub or Gitter or IRC, Reddit's the place to go. Hopefully we'll have more options for that in the near future. Upcoming events. Backdrop-friendly events include Sand Camp, which is February 25th through 27th. There we'll have our first full-day Backdrop training workshop. So if you're interested in getting trained on Backdrop, come to Sand Camp. It's free. It is open to the public, and we are excited to be giving it. Drupal Camp Utah is March 4th through 5th. They are looking for speakers on Backdrop. You don't have to be an expert. You can just kind of say what it is, why it's interesting, whatever you want to share about it. They've got excellent skiing there. If you want a ski trip, that's a good place to organize a trip as well. And then mid-camp will be in the Chicago area, March 19th through 22nd. We've got a bunch of people who live and are probably attending that, including Andy and Wes and probably Jim Birch. So that'll be an exciting event for Backdrop folks as well. Doug, did you pipe up and say you're going to that too?
I'll be there as well.
Nice. And then we have CiviCon, which I don't think has announced their dates yet, but it's going to be in Denver this year in late May or early June. We've been asked to go and participate in that because of our continuing work to try and make Backdrop CMS work with Civi CRM. So hopefully we'll have more updates on that in the near future. A new version of Civi, is it coming out today? I think it comes out today. Should be out any minute. And then there's going to be an integration sprint in the next few days about how to get Civi to work even better with tools like Backdrop, WordPress, and Drupal. We're going to be involved in that, try and get all the integration working. And then, after that, we'll hopefully get backdropdms.org using Civi CRM, and then we'll have a little case study to promote around that as well. If you guys are interested in books on Backdrop, the first Backdrop book, Migrating from Drupal to Backdrop, is available through Apress or Amazon.com. And the next book, Beginning Backdrop, is supposed to be out in the second quarter of 2016. So thank you to Todd Tomlinson, who's been doing all the great write-ups on those books, which is fantastic. And I bought my first copy. Amazon told me it shipped today, so I'm very excited. Should arrive soonish. I'm looking forward to giving it a read. Okay, that was our agenda with a little delay on front-end themes, but does anyone have any questions or comments or anything that we should discuss in today's meeting? Open Q&A time.
Yes. I've been having a pretty fun time with Calabox and Backdrop CMS. I'm curious, and I'd love to do a blog post about it once I iron it out. I'm curious if anybody else has played around with that. A little synergy might be in order.
Yeah, I haven't used Calabox with Backdrop yet, but I know that Mike over at Calamuna has been doing a bunch of work with it to make sure that it would go smoothly. So yeah, I would love to see a blog post on that, especially if you have like tips and tricks for getting things to work.
For sure. I might reach out to Mike. I've got his contact info.
Okay.
And run some stuff by him. So yes, I will commit to doing that.
Yay.
Sweet.
I'll put you with question marks on the schedule for dates.
Please do.
Anyone else have any questions or anything to chat about? If not, we will reconvene in the issue queue in GitHub or IRC or Gitter or whatever else, and we'll meet again next Thursday. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Nate?
Nope. Sounds
word?
great.
Go team.
Yay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today, and we're looking forward to getting back in the thick of it. So carry on.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.